As much as we might like to believe it, no online community lives forever, or maybe it does. How can you recognize the signs if your community seems to be slowing up, dying, or making a nosedive? This is the topic that we have today with my guest, Catherine Hackney. Stay tuned for a wonderful discussion. I think we're going to have a lot of great interaction on this topic. Kalisa, let's roll the opening. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you may happen to be checking in from. You have reached Talk About Your Community, a show about community building for community builders and for organizations that want to learn more about building great sustainable online community spaces that connect with offline spaces, that connect your customers, your employees, your stakeholders, whoever it happens to be. We're glad you're here today. Thank you for joining us, and Happy New Year to everyone. This represents, I think, maybe the third or fourth year of broadcast for the Talk About Your Community live stream show. And I always try to bring in a variety of interesting guests, people with different perspectives or expertise about topics related to community building. This week is no exception. We'll be bringing Catherine on here in just a minute. Just by way of bookkeeping, as we get into the new year here, our shows are going to continue to be every other Friday, as far as we have people scheduled in. That's the plan. And it'll still be at the 10 a.m. U.S. Central Time spot. We do live stream over on YouTube as well. So if you have trouble finding the back catalog of streams here on LinkedIn, you can find all of our past LinkedIn lives over at the Clocktower Advisors YouTube channel. And Chris will maybe add that for us in the chat here as we go. Would love to hear from you in the audience. This is a live and interactive show. And if you have comments, ideas, questions, rotten tomatoes to throw, we want them all. Please send them our way. And we may promote your comment onto the screen to see what it is that you are interested in talking about with my guests here. So other bit of bookkeeping, our next show is going to be on Friday, January the 24th, 2 weeks from now. And I am super excited, chuffed, if you will, about the guest for 2 weeks from now as well. Derek Weeks, the author of Unfair Mindshare. I've probably been bringing him up on calls over about the past year for his book, which I think is a wonderful take from a chief marketing officer's perspective on the value of online communities and how to go about communicating the value to leadership teams and how to budget for online communities. Just a really practical guide to this topic. He is going to be a guest on the show next Friday, January the 24th, and we'll be talking a little bit about human to human marketing and just how we can use digital technologies to better connect with each other and build that sense of belonging and connection. So I hope you will join us for that. It will be posted up here on the Clocktower Advisors company page, and we'll be promoting it out as well so that you don't miss it. But you're not here for that right now. You are here to meet my guest. I'm going to bring her right on the screen without further ado. Catherine, my dear friend, colleague, compatriot, the primary operator of Confident Communities Consulting, which is probably confusing because we're also part of the Community Consultants Collective. We've got a proliferation of C-based community names in our lives. Welcome, Catherine. Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. Thanks for having me, Todd.
So what is new in your life for 2025? What are you working on? What are you excited about? Tell me a little bit about your world.
Yeah, a lot is happening this year. It's already getting crazy in the first full week back to work, and some new customers coming in that I'll be working with. I focus on professional associations and helping build their membership online communities. generally on the Higher Logic and Forge platforms, and building more of a partnership with the Forge platform for online community. So excited about that, to work closer with them. I also have a trip to Italy coming up later this month. So excited for that personally. So yeah, lots of good things for 2025.
That's amazing. Forge is an interesting platform. I've had some interactions with them. They've just incorporated a learning management component to their platform experience just within the past year. I haven't had a chance to evaluate the merged platforms as of yet, but I'm eager to see what they can do.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They definitely have a big LMS component. They used to be Mobilize, and then they've merged with. I think there's 3 different components really all brought together. But yeah, it's a good platform. Certainly one that's great for nonprofits and professional associations.
That's great. That's great. And I'm so jealous of your trip to Italy. That sounds like it will be a phenomenal time.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited.
Will this be your first time there?
To Italy, yes, but not to Europe. So I'll
Okay.
be visiting Austria as well. I've been to Austria before. So yeah, hopefully just tick off a few more countries.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like we have some community friends based in Italy, but I'm not pulling it down in my brain off the top of my head here.
Right.
So just some quick shout outs to some familiar faces in the audience. Piper Wilson, hello, happy New Year, wonderful to see you. Matthias, our colleague from the CCC. I know you and Matthias have just been burning it up with the special interest group around associations within the CCC. Thanks for all your work that you've done in that. Great to see you. And my excellent friend and longtime supporter, Amadou Diallo. We did a great session last year on improv and storytelling for actually a couple sessions, one for storytelling and one for improv. I think Amadou, you've got a stream coming up soon on your StoryTep framework that you're going to be working with. That's going to be one not to be missed. If you haven't ever caught any of Amadou's work, I would strongly encourage you to do so. He does lovely stuff. And then Seth Ressler, I say Happy New Year to you as well, sir. And yes, I am lucky that your tomatoes are ripe, so we don't have to get any rotten tomatoes on today's call. Well, let's dive right in. This is a topic that I don't think gets talked about, quite enough with organizations. Is your community dying? Is it on a downward spiral? I know I did a piece a couple of years back when the Community Leaders Institute was still kicking, that Adrian Spare was a part of, and I did the piece on community death spirals, or like patterns for how communities tend to fail, and some turnaround things. I know this is a topic that you've thought about a good bit as well. Is this coming from some kind of personal experiences with some customers that you've worked with? And give us a little context for the topic, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't realize it for a very long time, but a conversation with Brian Oblinger actually made me realize that working with existing online communities that are not doing very well, reviving them is something that not a lot of community managers have experience with, or not a lot of people were talking about. But that was actually my very first introduction to managing an online community. I previously worked full-time in the membership department at a medical professional association here in Colorado, and was kind of accidentally given ownership of managing the online community for their 33,000 members across the US. And it had been around for several years, but nothing was really going on, right? It wasn't really being managed. So my job at that point in time was to reinvigorate it. That was the very first professional online community that I touched. And I was able to do that successfully with the help of volunteers, with the help of SMEs, training staff at the organization about the online community. So everybody at the organization was bought into it. And then just as I went, became self-employed, created my own company to help as many other associations as I can to build and create thriving online communities for their membership. many associations in the US have had some form of online community for a very long time. It's certainly not a new idea here to, particularly professional associations. So that's really great. But, they all started before a lot of the best practices existed.
Mhm.
So they
Mhm.
may have started off on kind of the wrong foot. Nobody fully understood it on staff. Nobody was actively managing it. Maybe it wasn't getting the correct resources, not given that priority. So when I can step in and help an organization to understand the platform that they have, be sure that they're utilizing the tools that they're already paying for to the fullest, and bring extra value to their membership. That's what I really love doing and have done that for the most of the communities that I have touched. So I guess you could say that reviving, dying, or existing stagnant communities is my specialty, along with working with professional associations.
And there are unique challenges around that kind of consultative work too. I'll say that a lot of the work that I've done over the years has tended to be more along the lines of a new community strategy. We're taking it out of the box. We're assembling all the parts. We're making sure that the concept is sound, and we're doing the validation with the members who are going to be part of the community. But with an ailing community, with one that is not showing signs of life, um, it seems like there are some precursor kinds of things to think about. Like, does the organization even realize that the community is dead, or like does the patient know it's sick? For me, is like one of the first questions that comes to mind. And have you been in situations where you had to sort of convince the leadership that, like, yeah, there's something wrong here. This is not going the way that it should, and here's what we need to do to correct it? Or has it been more the case of the leadership knows, oh gosh, we've spent all this money on community and we're getting nothing from it. Can you come in and help us out? Um, Maybe it's column A and column B, but I'm curious.
Right. It is a little bit of both. I think I would say, right, that first community that I got to work on at that professional association, I I don't think leadership really understood. They were like, "We have a community. That's all we need to do. That is fine. Members can use it if they want to, whatever." And it
Yeah.
was like, "No, there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot we can do with this." That it did take a little bit of time to educate, manage up a little bit of, hey, this could be so much more. For me to go through that learning experience, to be able to explain that to the organization so that it could become my role, a bigger part of my role, and to get the resources that I needed to create that. And then being able to do so over the course of about 3 years there, um, and increase engagement by about 50% or something like that, with, like I said, the help of volunteers, the help of staff, just getting more buy-in. So that conversation is really important when you don't understand. But I'll say, as a consultant, I'm often hired because the organization feels like they're not getting their money's worth out of a platform that they're paying for. And they're like, we're paying for this. Should we keep paying for this? Somebody come in, audit the community, let us know. So I've actually only one time closed a community, but
I was going
everybody
to ask.
else,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Only once did I ever actually shut down an online community. Every other one, and at this point, I've touched about 70 online communities in the last, 8 years of being self-employed. So yeah, there is hope, right? It's usually not the situation that we should shut it down. There's always something you can do to re-engage and bring value to your membership. Again, using the tools you've already got.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I have to admit, I never did understand that attitude of a leadership team that has paid for community. And they say, yeah, we've got this community thing. People can use it if they want to. Like, do you know how much money you spent for that community platform to, like, not get your money's worth out? Like, there should be some kind of return on investment that you're getting out of this experience, beyond sort of the warm and fuzzy feeling that you've created a clubhouse for people that want to go in there and hang out. That's always blown my mind. Much more aligned to the idea of an organization saying, like, we don't think we're realizing the value that we need from the community. But I've seen it both ways.
Right.
Some quick hellos to Heather and Steve, who just joined in. Great to see you both. Thanks for dropping in. We are here talking to Catherine Hackney, Principal of Confident Communities Consulting, about turning around dying communities and seeing what can be done to revive those experiences. Catherine, the piece that I did a few years back about community decline scenarios, I think I did like 3 different patterns that you see, and see if these kind of resonate with you. One of which is it's the Hubbard curve. It's basically sort of that bell curve idea. The community has started, it's grown, it's peaked, and now it's on a decline for one reason or another. And the reasons for that could be various, but it's sort of a slow, gradual fading. It's not that the idea behind that community has ever been a bad one, but maybe just people have become less energized. Maybe there's less programming than there was before. Like there needs to be some sleuthing to figure out what has gone wrong, that it's maybe not as resonant as it was anymore. The other scenario is a catastrophic failure for the community, where it's basically been on a growth curve, and then something happens and it's like dropping off of a cliff. And that's usually, I think, like an easier scenario to recognize, where something horrible has happened, that has undercut the reason for the community. Like the technology has changed, some key people in the community have just gotten angry and departed. It's devolved into open warfare, within the community space. I don't usually see those kinds of scenarios very often, but I think they can definitely occur. And then the third one is more of like a cascading failure situation. This thing happened, therefore this thing went wrong, and then this other thing has gone wrong, and we've kind of gone out of commission. Do any of those 3 scenarios resonate with you? Have they been things that you've seen in the course of working with some customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think you generally cover it. I agree that like the second situation, the catastrophic, like fast fall off, is not something we see very often, but it certainly can happen. There's always that, peak engagement, and then somehow that decline going downwards. So for me, I think the biggest thing is to pay attention to that point in time. Hopefully you're already like measuring things going on in the community, and you can recognize, okay, things are going downward. Why do we have this downward trend, right? So no matter what that situation is, trying to figure out what happened at the organization. I think often it's like a community manager departs the organization and they don't hire a new one. There's nobody managing the community anymore. That is often the situation that I see. And usually that's, it can still be a little slow, but members will trickle out on their own and stop engaging if they're not seeing the same resources put into the community that the organization maybe previously put in. So yeah, something like that is the most common that I see happen. But certainly, right, keeping an eye out for things like trolls, or if you start getting spam, or exactly technology issues is a big one as well. So
if you decide that you're not going to do moderation anymore in the community, maybe something like that could happen. I don't know what I'm thinking of here. Meta. So
yes, that'll hurt the community, right?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, like those sorts of things. If people don't feel safe anymore in this space, they're just not going to log back in. If there's always sort of a silent majority in a community. You've got your readers, and then your contributors and commenters. But the readers are always by far the vast majority. They may never participate, but they're coming back and they're logging in and they're getting value out of the community. But if suddenly that place becomes toxic, they just won't come back anymore.
Right.
It's an unsafe place on the internet. So gradual decline versus catastrophic. How would you go about addressing that with a customer? What process would you kind of go through to start assessing the issue and then intervening? And if you have any, examples, protecting the innocent by changing names, please feel free to do it. But I'm very curious, any kind of approaches that you've taken when you've done these turnaround scenarios.
Yeah, right. Like I mentioned, that you always want to start to try and figure out what happened, what changed. Communities don't often die for no reason, right? There's something, but maybe that reason is you're just not evolving with your membership and they're changing needs over time. So that's maybe a death by inaction, even if there is a community manager. But figuring what that is. So I always come into an organization and ask questions. What's happened? Has there been a change in leadership? Is there a change in the community manager or an exit of a community manager? Any other events happening internally at the organization around this point in time or right before, this drop off of engagement that we are seeing, to figure out maybe what has contributed to that. So there's certainly that research phase. That's what you want to start with. I often really like to next, after having the internal conversations and trying to pinpoint maybe one or two things that might have happened or changed, talk to people who are members of your community and used to be your super users, right? If you can reach out and have a one-on-one conversation with somebody who used to be very active in your community, but has exited, and figure out why. For some people that's going to be, I'm not in the industry anymore or life happens. But if you talk to maybe 10, 15 members like that who previously were active and no longer are, you'll figure out kind of a thread there. They'll start to talk about, well, we're not being listened to. Our feedback is, we're sharing feedback, but nobody's doing anything with it. And maybe there's that feeling, the community is not really for the membership, that the organization is kind of selfishly using the community and members aren't getting the value they need out of it. So why would they engage in that community? Getting those insights from actual users of your community is going to be big. And certainly, after that, if you can, I like to survey the full membership and just kind of get that sort of pulse, just generally what is the consensus of the sentiment of the community at this point in time, and ask open-ended comments and let people, or ask for open-ended comments, let people share their thoughts with you in a way that you can sort of figure it out with them. Mm-hmm. You probably need to rebuild trust, right? So being clear and open with the members and letting them know, we recognize the community is going downhill a little bit, something changed, and we're working toward improving it and bringing you value again, helps to build that trust, right? Being transparent with the members is like the big piece here. And that's where you're asking for feedback. Let them know why. Be honest with them, because very often, almost every time, something has happened that has caused a loss of trust. That's usually why people are stopping their engagement in the community. So you need to regain that. And they're humans, just like you're a human. So, interact with them that way.
I think that admission of vulnerability can take you far, especially if there's been a breach of trust, somewhere, and you're coming in as, the person trying to turn that bad situation around, and being really open to say, like, look, we recognize there have been some missteps here, or there have been some things that have led to a decline in activity. We really want to understand this and try to improve the situation. And so we'll be reaching out, and we'll even have a survey, as you said. I like the idea of sort of the one-on-one conversations, as well as surveying, as well as looking at things like the metrics, of the community, to tell, like, well, when did things turn, and was there a flame discussion, about something that, like, turned people off on the community, or did certain people depart at some point because they were upset about something, a decision? Those are not uncommon situations. But maybe it was a change in the platform. You did an upgrade, or you changed to a new platform entirely, and you just didn't get the adoption to the space, and people didn't make the transition over. But I love all of those, both the quantitative and the qualitative approach to diagnosing that there's an issue that's there. quick hello to Adrian, who just popped in a few minutes ago. Great to see you, man. Appreciate it. Happy Friday to you. For those of you who are out in Chatland here, really curious, have you ever been in a position where you had to remediate an ailing community? And if so, how did you approach it? Or are you facing that now? Or if you get another question for Catherine, please drop it in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. We'll put those questions up on the screen as they come in. Catherine, so once someone has maybe diagnosed that there's a problem and you've done some of the outreach to figure out what's going on there, what kinds of things can be done to start affecting a turnaround, do you think? What kinds of tactics might you consider?
Right. So I will say, I'm going to mention it again at the end, most likely, but I did a full course on this through the Community Strategy Academy that I know we can share a link to in the chat as well. So that dives into this pretty deeply, hopefully, with a lot of specifics if we don't have time to get to them today. But definitely then you kind of go back to basics, right? It's a little bit like you're launching a new community, but hopefully you've already got some of the groundwork laid and you just go back and review that. So always going back to your governance documents to start, if they exist or have existed in the past. A lot of the times the problem is that kind of document never existed. There were no governance documents to start, and that might be, hint, hint, like a reason that the community started to decline. So going back to those kinds of things, working on your purpose statement, what is our value that we are trying to bring to members through the community? You can't build an online community selfishly. You have to bring value to the members of your community so that they will engage. And then the organization, pretty much just by default, will always get value out of members engaging in your community. So you want to bring them value first, and then you will get value out of that through that brand loyalty, through the insights that you could to see from their conversations that are happening that you may never have known before. And you can implement those in the content or your offerings that you create for your customers or members as well. So be sure you're first bringing value, and you need to define that. Write it down. Spend some time workshopping that with staff internally. Maybe bring a few members in or volunteers in, past super users. Share with them a value statement and get their feedback. See if it actually resonates with your members, right? We don't want to be making assumptions also about what members want. Right? Like I said before, maybe you're just not evolving with your members' changing needs. You need to understand your audience. So also during that listening tour time, your interviews, your surveys, be sure you're asking members, what are their biggest pain points now? What do they need to be successful in their professional lives or their personal lives? Or, what are their goals so that you can build a community that helps them to achieve those things. And that's going to be the value that they're getting out of it. So they want to come back to your community and continue coming back. So that's always where I start. And I've mentioned volunteers a few different times too, just because I think you cannot do this alone. You can't, right? No. You can't just do it internally at the organization. You have to have members who are willing to volunteer and help you out and be champions of your community.
And I would say that those allies, both within the community as well as within the organization, you need to tap those individuals. There's two things that I wanted to, of the many great things that you said there are two that I wanted to call out that resonated particularly with me. One of them was that gosh, I forgot them both now. Anyways, it'll come to me. I appreciate that. We actually had a couple of really great questions that came up in the chat here, and I want to take them all in turn here. But that, and I'll probably think of these things as we start putting them up. So I'm just going to share them one at a time here. So Adrian asks, do you think too many companies think changing platforms fixes things rather than addressing underlying issues? This has been my experience. That's very interesting. What do you think, Catherine?
Yes, right. I hate this almost where it's so Yeah, I totally agree, Adrian, right? I see this all the time and I get so disappointed by it because the problem is people usually just don't understand the power of the tool they're already paying for. And to do a platform migration is a big lift, costs a lot of money, it's no guarantee of success. And right, Todd, like you said, changing platforms can even be the reason that you're losing engagement. So I think that an organization should always do their best to better understand and get training on the tools that they have available, their current community platform, make sure they're leveraging it, and then make a data informed decision of, do we really need a different platform based on, our members are asking for certain functionality that we don't currently have. Okay, that might make sense, but for most organizations, you do not need to go through a platform migration to be successful. So yes, the changing of the platform, not a quick fix, not at all.
And I'll say, just from our personal experiences this year, in the past year, the Community Consultants Collective was living on Slack as a platform for gathering. Not an ideal space, but it was free and useful at the time. But then when they changed their policies, we decided it was time to move to a different platform. Well, whereas we had, I think, close to about 200 people that were signed up on the Slack channel, we've only now gotten back to about 110 who've rejoined. Now, you could well argue that those other individuals were maybe not engaged, and it's probably okay that they went away. And now the people that we have in the existing community are double opted in, but it took a while to make that transition over to what is now the Disco platform that we're on. So that definitely resonates. And I assume in any kind of platform migration situation, you're going to maybe lose about 30 or so percent of the people that you had in the platform previously, if you don't make a concerted effort to kind of get them over into the new space. That's great. I did think of one of the things that I wanted to mention was that from what you said, that going back to the purpose of the community in the first place, it may be that your members have forgotten the purpose of the community. Regularly reminding your members about the value and the reason for having the community in the first place might be something that helps re-energize people for their motivations to be there in the first place. And I think reminding your internal stakeholders about the reasons for the community, equally could do that. I wanted to call that out, that you had said that. And the other one was maybe you had mentioned sort of restarting or relaunching the community. And I actually wanted to ask a question about that, which is, are you a proponent of having like a launch day event, like actually having like a specific stake in the ground to say, like, this day we're going to be relaunching the community concept? Have you seen that work? Or is it more of a gradual process in your experience?
Yeah, personally, I'm not a big fan of like a single launch day event. Definitely, once you go through the steps to reinvigorate your community and you feel like you're ready, doing a big marketing splash and having a relaunch of the community can be a great thing to do. But personally, I do think it needs to be a trickle more than like a single day, right? We need to continue reminding people about it. A big event, or if you want to do like a live event and celebrate it, that's cool, but a lot of your members probably don't necessarily care, or like you haven't fully won them back yet. So I would say, yes, make a big marketing splash, post about it on social media, but don't stop. That's the thing of, if you haven't been sharing your purpose statement for your community, start sharing it regularly through your socials, share it in the community, use marketing campaigns. Something that is always lacking when I come in to help an organization revitalize a community is they're missing onboarding, right? So around that time that we're relaunching, it's like, all right, let's just restart a new like onboarding campaign, but put every member in it, even members who've been around several years. Let's start it over with everyone, re-educate them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And have that be a campaign that, I've spoken about this before on other webinars and presentations, but I personally love one email a month for 12 months. That is my ideal onboarding campaign. It is a whole year long. It is not 4 emails in a week all up in your face right away, but it's a slow, constant, continual reminder that, hey, the community's here. And hey, like maybe here's one other tidbit or here's one functionality, and talk about that per email as your consistent reminder to folks. You have to, with staff and members, continuously educate them and remind them the community is there and what the value is that they might be missing out on. So yes, that's often a piece that is missing, those marketing campaigns and talking about your community. Often, if you just do that, you'll get a lot more engagement than what you had previously.
That is so wise. I really like that. That's something I'll take into my own practice as I work with companies that are trying to turn around engagement. I wanted to hit a couple more questions here. Man, the time is just flying by. Seth had a really good one here. Seth asks, how does your approach differ if the decline is due to an internal change versus an external change? Really interesting.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's very situational, right? That's where when I'm consulting with an organization, I can come in and look at their specific situation, what has happened at their organization. And, like I said too, usually I'm hired when they already know they need help. They're aware there's opportunity there for their online community that they're not getting. But, if it's due to an internal change, that just comes with a lot of education, a lot of those meetings and conversations with the executives, with the people managing the community, to be sure everybody's on the same page, get the staff bought back into the idea of community so you can also get the resources you need. One thing I haven't mentioned, but I'm also a big proponent of, is I always talk about training all staff on the online community. Todd, you mentioned it really quickly previously too, but I think it's very important. And for one of my clients, for every new staff person that comes into the organization, I have a one-on-one with them and I talk about, what is the community? How do you use it appropriately as a staff person? What is the purpose of it? Why do the members care? So if you are training your staff and train every new staff person as they come in, talk about community. Ask for time at the all staff meetings to share metrics, wins, what's going on in the community, so that they don't forget, right? And if there is that change in leadership and you need to get more people sort of bought in, that will help. If you have more people on staff in general who understand it, they can help to kind of back you up as well with the leadership. So bring the whole organization into it.
I think that's great. I see that as an issue in more large enterprise organizations where there's an executive leadership change, and then that changes the orientation of everybody else under them in the organization, and potentially the way that the community communicates what it does. Like, hey, we're no longer about life cycle of the customer. We are really about acquisition right now, because as a CEO, we know that's what we need to do. Well, community is not necessarily the best use case for acquisition. And so that and suffers, and there's a decline as a result of it. But if, as you say, you have encultured the rest of the organization to recognize the value of that, the teams will be screaming about product management and your customer service team, and everybody will start saying, no, we can't just abandon that, because there's tremendous value in this, and hopefully prevent those kinds of declines from happening in the first place. Great question, Seth. Thanks for sharing that. And there was one more from Piper that I wanted to put up here on the screen too, who has inherited an ailing community. She says, before I left, my main job was to reassure them that yes, there were problems, as we talked about a little earlier, but we're going to develop a plan to change that. Yes, I was so pleased when they listened to me about that. Unfortunately, that's as far as I got. Yes. Yeah. Changes in community staff can make it really tough for communities to get traction and turn around, especially if they're in a bad spot like that, for sure.
Yeah, I would say consistency, right? That's management, the staff who are owning the community. The more change that there is, the harder it is to stay consistent. So also in those situations, SOPs, policies, having, again, like those kinds of governance documents written down, documented internally so that somebody else may, have to come in and step into that role of community manager, that they can continue what has been going on while they're also kind of figuring it out and, adjust as needed going forward. But you need those things written down. You need it documented to be consistent.
100%. I was just going to say, like, if you have a community management playbook in place, then you can ensure some of that consistency across that. Yeah, 100%. That was the first thing I thought of, and you brought it up as well. I love that. And then one more comment that came in here from Matthias. How do associations make their community indispensable? I know this is right up your alley, Catherine.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Matthias. I mean, there's so many ways. There's so much value that an online community, especially for professional associations, can bring to the membership, right? Members are paying to be part of your association for their career, for their professional, development. What can they get out of it? So put professional development in the community. I've done that through things like mentoring programs, volunteer opportunities in the community. Of course, putting your education, putting documents, resources, research, recordings in the community so that people have to log in there to access it, and encourage conversations and encourage your members to talk about, right, what are their professional challenges? What are their needs, so that the association can listen to that. This is a really great feedback loop within the community, that the association can better understand their membership so that the association can then create content, conferences, events that are needed in a very timely manner through, what they're seeing in the conversations in their community. So there's so many different ways you can do that. That's just a few off the top of my head.
Adrienne adds to the conversation. Making it valuable. Like I was thinking about this too. It's not just about dumping the content in there, which is great and can lead to conversation, but make it about the members. Make it. You don't be afraid of spotlighting innovative posts or people that are consistently great contributors to that community space. So powerful to make it. The community is about them at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I will say, anything you can put in the community that they can put on their resume, right? Again, like those volunteers, I always remind volunteers, hey, you're in this volunteer role. You should add that to your LinkedIn. You should add that to your resume, particularly for professional associations. Members love that. So it's like, oh, okay. Or we have a mentoring program run through the community. You're a mentor. Put that on your resume. That's a great thing to boost your own, personal brand or your own experience, and make sure that your members also know how to shine the spotlight on themselves and through their engagement in your community, because that does bring them, extra value to their career, or they can boost their own, like I said, personal brand in your community as well, and become knowledge experts and maybe find their next job through the community. Your community can host your job board. Those are the other things that just bring value to your members.
That's wonderful. Yes. And I agree totally with what Adrienne just said here. People need to listen to Catherine. She knows what's up. Lots of gems today. Yes, absolutely. 100%. I love that. Also, it occurred to me as you were saying that, encouraging that culture of recognition for others within that community, encouraging the behavior of praising others or putting others in the spotlight, or giving them shout outs for things that they've done that are wonderful in the space. And sometimes as the community manager, you need to be the one to show them that it's okay to do that. That sometimes I feel like a lot of members of the community would participate more if they didn't feel like they needed permission to do it. And so modeling behaviors and having that group of champions or super users in there who can kind of show what's expected behaviors or things that are the norms, within whatever little village you're creating, is super important. Well, that's great. So, Catherine, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom around these ideas today. Any kind of closing thoughts or wrap ups or things that you'd like to highlight so people can learn more?
Yes, thank you. I did have one thing I don't want to forget to mention is the blog about the ROI framework that Matthias and I built together. That is posted on the CCC's blog right now. I think Calista can put up the link to that in the chat too. So the kind of final piece is as you're working to strengthen your online community, be sure you're measuring it. And hopefully this ROI framework will help you to do that. And we were pretty comprehensive in this framework, so don't be overwhelmed. Based on your community goals and your situation, pick and choose what makes sense. And maybe that's just one of the categories in the ROI framework, but measure it. Have that data available internally and share your successes internally within your organization to be sure that you can get that consistent buy-in and consistent resources for the online community so you can continue to build it, continue to bring value to your members, and they will stick around. And you won't have to go through that stagnant community issue again in the future. And of course, if you want more detail about this, the earlier in the chat, it was shared the Community Strategy Academy course I did that's a bit more exhaustive on this topic. And of course, feel free to reach out to me, LinkedIn or otherwise. I'm always happy to chat about this topic and help answer questions where I can with anybody who's going through it. So, yeah.
Well, Catherine, thank you. You're a font of insight and ideas about this topic. And as always, I deeply appreciate you and your friendship and for being on the show. This has been really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. Thanks for being such a great mentor and leader in the industry as well. I know myself and many other people look up to you. So thank you, Todd.
Well, I'm honored to be able to convene some of these conversations. On that topic, I will mention something that's been on my mind lately. I think maybe some of the rest of you, I know I've had some very fun conversations and interactions based on a blog post that Serena Snowd from the CCC put up recently. There's some concerning things happening out in the big social media mega platform world around the removal of moderation from some of these big social media feeds. This is an ask for those of you who are tuned in on this. If you know of anyone from Meta or ex-Meta that is not under NDA, who either worked on the moderation side or the ethicist side of things and wants to be on the show, I want to do a series about this. This is something that we as community managers should be deeply concerned about in the public comments and these conversations. Yes, on the selfish side of me, it's going to drive more people into smaller online communities, but there are implications for that. If there isn't a public commons that's a safe place to be, if it's all the dark internet, there's some serious issues around that. So please, if you're hearing this, or if you're catching this on the replay, and you know of anyone that would want to be on the show and want to talk about this, I'm deeply interested in having that conversation. So please send them my way. In the meantime, I invite you to tune in 2 weeks on January the 24th, Friday, same bat time, same bat channel. Boy, that's dating me. But I would like to invite you to tune in for that as we have Derek Weeks, the author of Unfair Mindshare, joining me on the stream. He is an amazing guy. We're going to be talking about human-to-human connection via technology, and I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about his book and his great work. It's something I've been a proponent of for about the past year since I've read it, and so we'll see you then. If you think of it, please drop us a comment, like, or share the stream here on LinkedIn. Or up on YouTube as well on the Clocktower Advisors channel, where we've got our full back catalog available. And I will leave it at this. I hope that you take some time off this weekend, be good to yourself, and so that you're recharged and able to support the communities that you are in. And we will see you back here in 2 weeks. Catherine, thank you once again.
Thank you.
See you, everybody. Bye.